This is Coda Radio, episode 345 for February 18th, 2019. Hello there, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and its related technologies. From a very cold and icy Pacific Northwest, my name is Chris, and join us every week, like the soldier of podcasting that he truly is. It's our man in Florida, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, handsome. Good to be connected with you, and we must not take another moment. No more time must be spent on anything other than the introduction of Wes Payne. Hello, Wes.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Wes. I got to come up with like a really clever way to segue you into the show.
You got to work on that.
Because right now,
homework.
Right now, it's Chris practices improv. Is really what happens with the intro.
Well, that'll benefit future hosts, I'm sure.
Well, guys, we have a pretty great episode. The three of us are gathered here today to talk about many, many things. Mostly how Mike spends his money, though. This guy right now, he's got not one, but two new Linux rigs sitting in his office. We're really later today going to be talking about his new Thelio workstation, which is a killer.
Oh, my God.
You and I got a chance to go see them hands-on, but Mike had a chance to see them.
Yeah, it's his. He's using it in his home.
Yeah, he's like the prototype, too. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just as a little T-skis, Mr. Dominic, you got yourself a Darter Pro laptop as well.
Yeah, I'm currently reviewing that. Very just kick the tires of the review. Literally, like, installed basic toolchain. So, and I, of course, put the mandatory number of drinks on top of it.
Right. So how does it work as a drink holder?
It's pretty effective. In fact, I did get a Valentine's package from Emma for myself, my wife, and my son, including
That's so
plastic
sweet.
wrap, a flask, and shirt for Laura, and a number of chocolates for my son.
That's
so
nice.
They are prepared.
That's really nice. You know, they've embraced it because they realize that it's a good revenue source.
It's just going to keep happening, and it's a whole family affair.
Yeah, literally, your Twitter feed was giving me anxiety all weekend long. It was rough in the Fisher household.
Okay, when you're reviewing a laptop, it's important to put a bottle of scotch on it.
I can see that. An
Right.
entire bottle, some cups. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even like, it was just cutty, so it's not like we were going too hard.
Yeah, okay.
But I suppose the higher proof it is, the better, right? There's less water in it, so that's got to be safer for the laptop.
Great point.
It'll actually clean it.
That's a pro move right there.
Science.
You got to love the internet, though. And I don't mean any disparaging comments towards anybody who actually did this, because a couple of you did this. But like the internet's response to Mike posting a picture of a laptop with a drink on it is, hey, Mike, just so you know, ThinkPads are waterproof. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, ThinkPad. I've gotten a lot of emails mentioning what I thought were dead ThinkPads.
You've also got a couple of audience members that are stalking you in Telegram, trying to get you to let them buy you the unspillable mug. There's a couple.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a thing that's happening.
Oh, I did forget. In Emma's package was also a sippy cup.
Not for your son, but for you.
Nope. Yeah.
Now listen, Mike. I actually wasn't sure if you're going to make it today. I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to hold it against you if you no-showed, because as far as I can tell, you haven't slept for about 24 hours. And not only is that the first time this week, but I believe it is the second time this week. What happened to all that talk we had about getting better sleep hygiene? What happened here?
Yeah, I need to get back on the wagon there. I have not slept a good night's sleep in 4 days.
That is getting up there. That's some serious stuff. Like hallucinations.
I get grumpy.
Yeah, well, I keep seeing Alan Jude with the USB stick installing BSD on all my machines.
Yeah. Keeps you up at
It's
night.
That might
obviously
actually be
my
real. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, so are you pulling all-nighters for work, or is it unrelated to work?
It's work. It's just trying to wrap things up. The beginning of the year is always kind of awkward. You have projects endings, projects starting, and just trying to dive. One project that's supposed to ship, and it looks like it is shipping, but that's requiring little more effort than I bargained for.
I mean, I know how much people love it when we talk about this stuff because it's
They
only
get so happy.
It's only us on the show that sleep, so it's not applicable to anybody that listens
Certainly
to the
not.
show.
No.
Obviously, I'm back, so we're going to talk about stuff not related to coding. Clearly, because only when I'm on the show does any of us sleep. Apparently,
I'm deleting Reddit today.
I just really quickly, I got into tracking my sleep.
Yeah.
And so I had a 15-day stretch where I was getting really good sleep. And it was pretty remarkable.
Did people comment? I'm thinking Hadia type people.
Yeah. I would say I had great energy. It was good. I felt it definitely translated to a more productive sense of being, which it's like the key factor to me having an overall well sense of being. Like if I don't feel productive, I'm a mess. And but for the last week, once I got sick, and then I've been traveling. To last night was the first night. See, I can tell you right now, I got a little complication on my watch. I pushed one button, and I can tell you, last night I got 15 minutes of deep sleep.
Oh no!
I got 4 hours of quality sleep.
Okay,
and that's my best in a week. But I know that now at least it's trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I actually you'll see this. I get a readiness meter. Can you see that? I get a readiness meter that tells me based on my historical sleep data how I'm going to feel overall today. And I'll tell you, this is actually pretty spot on.
Oh,
don't check it all the time.
So you kind of be like a little heads up, like you might not be on best. Don't take take it a little easy.
If you've got the Apple Watch, get auto sleep and just wear it for 30 days and go to bed with it and just get your sleep figured out. It makes a huge difference in your productivity and how much you spill on laptops. So this is your intervention right now. Right?
Oh, yeah. Get some sleep.
Yeah. Your buddy Wes and Chris we're having an intervention, Mike, and we're saying tonight you have to go to bed on time. No working late tonight. So.
Yeah, no, I think I might go to bed at 8. Me and the 2-year-old are going to be in lockstep.
Good. Well, I want to see a tweet in 24 hours or so saying you got great sleep. Otherwise, we're going to have to keep talking about it on the show, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. You see what I did there?
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Well, that was really just me stalling to get us to the point that I think Wes and I are most interested in. I mean, we got a lot to cover today, including switch statement changes. We got login forms to shit on. There's some big things for IoT developers that are going to probably change the game for the next 10 years. And Mike got triggered this week. So we're going to talk about all of that. But first, we got to get to the bottom of Mike's Thelio workstation. Y'all know that System 76 announced their own in-house designed and built Thelio workstations that run Linux. They have a unique wood panel design that's curved around the front of the case. Lots of I/O. The specs for the hardware, the case, the design of it, all of that is open source. They have a daughter board that manages some of the I/O, also open source. And they started shipping... When did we go down there, Wes?
Kind of the first start of December, I think.
Was it? Yeah, you're right. So mid-December, they started shipping to customers that pre-ordered them. And Mike's pretty early in that batch, and just this last week or so, received a System 76 Thelio workstation and has posted his review. I'm kind of curious to know your initial thoughts, Mike, and your overall, buy, don't buy on the Thelio.
Yeah, so the Thelio is magical for a number of reasons. The most important being that a client actually paid for it.
That helps.
That is magical.
So that's a big win. I like it. Just top line, I definitely would recommend it. I did get a couple comments already because I love Reddit. I guess there are cheaper Linux workstations, and I did do some research, and it's that is true.
Turns out. You can always save a buck in the Linux ecosystem.
Right. But if you're coming from the Mac world, this is half the price of an iMac Pro, if not it's about, as configured, this is about 24 after tax and shipping it, I think.
Okay.
I am running the AMD version of the regular Thelio. We have the specs somewhere in the show notes or in the review. So if people want to look, just go to DominicM.com and look. This is probably the fastest computer I've owned. It is pretty specced out. 8 gig GPU, 32 gigs of RAM, crazy Ryzen processor. I love it. So far, I've had only one minor issue, which was in shipping the secondary hard disk drive dislodged because UPS apparently thought it was a soccer ball of some kind. So I did have to open it up, but that actually brings me to one of my positives. I was able to reinstall the drive, open the case, reinstall the drive without touching a screwdriver. Everything is basically the whole case is hand screws.
That's so nice when you just want to get down to work.
Yeah, if you just need to fix something, working inside of the case is easy. I could see myself modding this out with additional hard disks, and I have to say, and I know this is like super nerdy, although you're listening to Coder Radio, so you're already, done. I have not seen the inside of a case that was so easy to work in.
Yeah. Like they have the thumb screw plates in there for additional thumb screws when you add more devices later. The hard drive bays are precision cut. You know what's funny though that you hit a shipping issue is, Wes, wouldn't you agree? Like one of the number one things that Carl would comment on, Carl, CEO of System 76, was all of the crazy ass things that they were particularly engineering just to survive shipping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They spent a lot of time being like, well, we needed to design this not just for being in the case and that life, but how is it going to get to the customer?
In fact, so much so that I actually asked Carl, I'm like, so clearly like shipping is the most extreme, damaging experience in the life, because the life of this PC, they are custom laser cutting individual components to hold the video card in position during shipping, drive cage stuff to hold their dot, like all these crazy little components that they are custom manufacturing.
That aren't there for any other part of the life of the machine.
Just to survive shipping. And so I asked Carl, I'm like, is this the most extreme situation the computer goes through? He was like, yeah, this is it. If the computer survives shipping, they generally survive everything. It's the most damaging thing. And so much of their R&D goes into surviving shipping.
Yeah, did I see that they're like the Super Thelio, the massive, ships in like in a giant big case?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I have to say they have a very nicely designed box with some artwork. I did not post a picture of it because it looked like Rocky Balboa had a few rounds with it by the time it got to my door. Yeah, the UPS kicked the crap out of it.
So how's I/O, inputs and outputs? Like, do you have pretty good connectivity with this thing? Do you have plenty of storage?
Yeah, you have plenty of storage. You have two USB 3.1 Gen 2s, which I thought was a nice touch. They're basically just double the I/O throughput of regular USB 3. You have a bunch of USB 3 ports. You have so if you're coming from a Mac, you might have to get out one of those like Tom's Hardware guides and realize what all these ports are. Might take you a few hours. The only, I would say, deficiency in the ports is actually what I'm experiencing right now. There is no front line out for an audio jack. And if you're doing any kind of podcasting, I'm on the Thelio right now, by the way.
Oh,
so if you're doing anything
is that what
like
I'm hearing in the background?
Is that what that is? That was my next.
Yeah, I do hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Yeah,
so there is a pretty. I was wondering how the Rode mic would pick it up. There is fan noise.
Yeah.
Now I don't know.
It just got a little louder too. It just picked up a little.
My neighbor's also mowing his lawn.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
so we'll have to disambiguate.
Now, so what the audience hears is processed a little bit, so they don't hear the full effect. They'll probably hear a little bit of it, but they won't hear the full effect that we're hearing.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like I don't hear it when I'm watching TV. Now, I will say that I think this machine is. I'm used to slapping Linux on a Dell or some Windows workstation and fighting with particularly graphics drivers, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that noise if you just heard something is my neighbor, because I just heard it kick up through my headphones. The experience of taking a fully powered desktop, putting it on my desk or on my side table and being ready to go was great. Having the drivers all pre-configured. I honestly think if you're considering switching from Mac OS to desktop Linux because you wanted a Mac Pro, right? I know I'm getting very particular here, and you happen to be a developer. Honestly, consider the Thelio. You're used to spending money. It's not that much more expensive than the equivalent, let's say, Dell. And you don't deal with all the nonsense that you would deal with if you, say, bought something at Best Buy and had the slap Linux on it. Also, it's beautiful. I have gotten more comments on the case than anything else, which I think is interesting.
Yeah,
but
I thought it was a nice design. I really did.
Yeah, right, but that was kind of one of their goals is a desktop you could have on the top of your desk.
Yeah.
Which seems like kind of where you put it.
Yeah, that is how they put it. They wanted something you'd be proud to show off, and I think it is that. And the thing is what you're proposing has a built-in sales advantage. Like Apple has this massive try-cost. If you want to get into the Apple ecosystem from a Mac side, you're looking at $1,000, or you buy used. But you'll eventually want to buy a machine that can actually do your work, so you'll eventually spend money. But with Linux, you can throw it on anything just to see if the applications work for you. You can't do that with macOS.
Yeah, right. And you commonly do. You just find a machine. You're like, well, yeah, spec it out, try it, see what happens.
Or even if you have a decent machine now, so you've got maybe like this right here that we have one of these in the studio right now. It's a 2013 MacBook that we've used to throw Arch on before and things like that. It's still a great
it's a fine
computer.
Machine, yeah.
It really is funny. Like it's a 2013 computer, and if the design hadn't changed, I wouldn't be able to peg it. I wouldn't know. Like it does everything, including processing complex audio effects very quickly. And so you could just throw Linux and a VM on this, or throw Linux on this and try out the workflow for a week and see if it works for you. You can't do that with the Mac. You can with Windows. It's not
right.
as flexible, but you can.
Yeah, it's a little more. You can push and squeeze it, but unless you want to get into like KEXT hacking, and that's just unpleasant, and it's not done as much anymore either.
Yeah. So I think there is a sort of you can put I guess the way to put it is you can put your toes in the water before you make the leap. You can put your workflow toes in the water, see if it works for you, and see if the water is amenable. So would you spend your own money on it, Mike?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, since I am a complete Linux hippie now, apparently, I would. This would be my Mac Pro replacement.
Get the hell out of here.
Now, wasn't it your co-host maybe over a year ago who told you should go with a powerful desktop approach and build a powerful desktop that is a Linux-based machine, and then your remote systems could be like a $1,000 banger MacBook or a Chromebook or anything that you needed for the remote work, but you could always remote into your centralized, powerful desktop system that you invest into? I seem to think
I'm sorry, Mr. Senator. I have no clear recollection of that meeting.
It sounds like something I might say.
It does sound like something you might say.
You bastard.
I'm going to be really curious how this works out in like the next month or two, especially with the fans and what happens there, because it is really tempting to just solve that problem. Just be like, here's a machine. I can do work on it. I know it'll just work. I can install whatever Linux distro and it'll have support.
You and I were in a small office room with one of these Thelios.
I did not sound like that.
It didn't sound like that, but it was an Intel-based system. It was not the AMD system. Could be a different cooling system. Who knows? It could be the different sizes have different sound
I
profiles.
guess in theory you could go hack on that daughter board and
maybe
mess with it.
Well, I'll be curious to know what you think of the Darter in time. I think it's look at you. You're swimming in new gear over there. You're doing a lot of OS setups and installs right now, aren't you?
I can install a Rails toolchain in about 15 seconds now.
So are you just sticking with pop on everything? Like, I'm sorry, pop _OS exclamation mark?
They really need to change that. Yeah, I was running elementary, but right now everything's on pop because that's the way it's configured. Just for the sake of sanity and not wasting too much time, I am going to stick with pop.
Huh. There you go. There you go, Wes. There you go. Do you think you could try it? You think you could live on pop for a while?
I would be willing to try.
Yeah. You're still on Plasma, right?
I am still on Plasma.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie and Neon.
Yeah. Yep. Oh,
I mean, it was really nice when the latest one dropped and I just did an update and
nice.
It keeps working.
Yeah. Well, Wes and I, and Elle, who, if you haven't met yet, go check out Linux Unplugged. She was on here recently. We'll all be hanging out at Scale 17X coming up on March 7th through the 10th, 2019, at the Pasadena Convention Center. And if you're going to be at Scale, go to meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Saturday evening, we're going to all go out to dinner, have ourselves a little get-together, and just hang out amongst friends. Scale is the annual. I was going to say, I don't know how I was going to say the biannual, but it's not. It's an annual Southern California Linux Expo. It always happens around this time of year. It's March 7th through the 10th this year. And the hotels are booking up quick. So if you're going to go, you need to get a hotel very soon. Elle will be giving a talk from our team on the introduction and basics of containers. Wes and I will be sneaking around, chatting and hanging out with people and fully taking advantage of the hallway track.
Oh, yeah.
As we do. I don't think I'm bringing the RV this year, though.
No, just going freestyle.
Going to do the hotel thing.
We'll be fast and light and on our feet.
Nimble, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Nimble, if you will.
See everything we can.
And don't ask Mike. He's not going. Don't ask him. Florida's on the other end.
I mean, you just get stuck in the swamp, right? I believe that's how it works.
Yeah.
By the time he got to California, it'd be over. That's the problem.
That's true. Or an alligator would follow me, and I can only imagine people from California trying to say, "Alligator, how have we offended you?"
Is that how it works over there?
I'm a huge fan of California.
Well, before anybody, I suppose if they're going to leave the show, they've already left now. But maybe we should do a little development talk.
Oh, maybe.
What do you say?
What's the name of the Coder Radio?
Yeah, no, I don't think. Coder Radio. At the end of January, the .NET Core development team has released a new version of .NET Core Framework, which I think might have got mentioned here on the show.
Yeah.
.NET Core 3 Preview 2, as they say. It delivers a new version of it delivers a new set of features to C# for developers, and we're going to be talking about switch expressions today. Switch expressions, because this is one of the new things that landed in .NET Core 3 Preview 2.
Okay, so I threw this into some of the show notes because Mike suggests it was something that Mike said on a previous episode, which was just some of the feedback, the attitudes, not liking some of the changes in recent C#.
Oh yeah,
and I saw a couple comments on the internet, things like, this might be better titled Changing Things for the Sake of Changing Things and Appealing to the Programming Language Geeks.
Oh, snap.
And so I thought this was kind of an interesting change. Apparently it offends people.
Wow, that's a shocker. That's totally unexpected. Okay, so to fully appreciate this, help me grok what a switch expression is and why .NET needed them.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, Mike, would you say that it needed them?
Yeah, I think Wes and I might have a little falling out here.
I'm here to witness it.
A switch expression is basically stuff you could already do, but with an equal sign and a right-pointing caret thingy. Okay. Basically, let's make C# more functional so we can show off how smart we are. Sorry, go ahead, Wes.
Oh, that shot's fired.
I mean, okay, it is a small thing. It probably just doesn't matter at all, and we could probably just skip the whole thing. But I don't know. I like expressions over statements. Statements are they're just so, they feel like weird black assembly computer magic where you just say like adjust the machine. And an expression, it's a nice clean mathematical style function. So it just seems easier to reason about. And I often try to set things up instead of having a case statement or something like that. With a switch expression, you get all the same pattern matching benefits. And I think the way with the equal sign, with it on the right of the equal sign, it's just a little clearer to think about.
It's a good case. That's a good strong case.
I will say that the C# in particular, like obviously this kind of stuff works better in really functional languages like F# or Haskell or Scala. So like there is a little bit awkward if you need to do a couple things on the, like whichever, you've matched something in your switch and then you want to do something. If you need to have multiple statements in there, probably the best solution right now is a kind of ugly lambda. So it's not perfect. I don't think you should go change everything to use this. I like the functional influence.
Well, it seems to be the way of the future. And I think that's been one of the criticisms is that, this is trendy. This is what the trendy thing to do in language design.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is on the edge probably of like, what's the real value versus just being in vogue?
Yeah. Well, there's value to that too sometimes when you're trying to draw in new eyes and new developers. So that's not necessarily, I don't think it should be necessarily dismissed. I don't think it's worth a major change.
I feel like oftentimes the functional approach can be a cleaner mental model, and it might be more difficult for people who've been doing it for a long time and already have it into model, but for newcomers, it might be simpler.
Exactly. And it might be if you're going for a growth thing versus, just dragging along the old timers.
Yeah, it's just F# envy. all kidding aside, though, this is interesting, right? Because we're seeing all the stodgy old languages, Java, C#, are now adopting I call them West features, but basically cool kid features of safety and functional programming. And I actually think it is to the benefit of, let's just say, more conservative developers who maybe aren't exactly going to go on the bleeding edge. As I said that, the Rust book just fell off my desk.
Is that what that was?
That's very fitting. Okay.
Wow, that's telling. That's a sign from
clearly
somebody.
I have
checker
static.
is upset.
Yeah, I have static in my headphones, and the Rust book fell. So there's some sort of supernatural Rust god who's about to materialize in here.
Yeah. That's what happens when you stay up for 24 hours developing. You summon the Rust god. They are watching all the time.
Is that how the first Rust developer came to this planet?
I believe, yeah.
Someone just didn't sleep for a week.
Yeah, I believe that is actually the truth. So what's our takeaway from this story, Wes? I mean, besides the fact that it's coming and people better get used to it. Yeah,
it's just a new form you might start seeing out there. Probably you won't use it, but be aware some people might.
Oh, I bet. So there was a great post that completely validated everything I believe in life this week. So I wanted to talk about it with you guys. And it is, don't get clever with login forms. This is becoming a plague of the internet that is preventing good password hygiene. And I have a plea to all developers in the audience that might work at any of these companies that could make a difference here. You have been chosen by God to make a difference today. So please listen. Please create login forms with simple, linkable, predictable, and that play nicely with password managers. That's it right there. Simple like that. I've recently experienced several login forms that won't let me paste in the password field. Have you ever experienced this?
Yeah. And commonly it's the worst things. It's like important stuff that has your credit card information.
Yes. And ones that I implicitly want
to use a really long, secure password.
A very long and secure password that they no longer, or here's another one. They will not let you paste in the bank routing and account number fields.
Yeah, right? Like what?
Which, again, is something I
don't want a fat finger and get wrong.
No.
Because they charge you a fee for that.
Yes. Or here's another common one that we've all seen. I blame Mike for this design trend, is it makes everything look nice and simple, where it hides the password field, so you just get the login, you get the username, then you have to hit next.
So yeah, right.
And then you get the password, which some password managers are fine with, but we don't need this. And I totally, completely blame Mike for that. Yeah, I do. And there's... What?
I have a login form for you.
Yeah, I bet. You know what I'm saying.
You have to...
Design.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
People that go for the nice looking designs with their fancy websites, which you're a big fancy website
sure
guy.
are.
You know what I'm saying?
I am. Well, I'm changing though, Chris. There's going to be no more fancy websites.
Oh.
It's just going to be a terminal application where you have to solve a programming problem in Rust to log in.
There you go.
That's why you don't need a password. No one can get in. It's fine.
No one can get in.
I don't understand how this even happens. I guess they're trying to prevent maybe bot abuse.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
That's the only thing I can think of is they're trying to prevent somebody from automating the entry of the information into the fields.
I mean, might some of it be just not really thinking about it? That just sort of with modals, for instance, right? You're like, oh yeah, well, it just pops up and it kind of looks.
Yeah, now a modal login, I think, is a design-driven choice. I think you got a great point there. That needs to stop immediately. That has to stop. It
does need to stop.
It really has to stop.
Just make /login or whatever. It's fine.
I will go out of my way to try to find a non-modal version of the site, and then I will bookmark it. Yeah, I will do that. So, but the other thing that needs to stop, it's fundamentally screwing with good password hygiene, is the blocking of the password paste. And I think they do it because you think about it, that's not an accident.
No, you have to very consciously do it.
Right. So there was probably multiple conversations in a large company, maybe dozens of discussions about blocking password entry, right? You got to figure
it has to.
How this gets built.
Exactly. Right. In any reasonable size organization.
So there was at multiple levels of the company, there were individuals that thought this was a good idea, that bought off on the idea for better security.
Got to put on the schedule, got developers to finish the feature.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Can I give you my... I have actually experienced this.
Yeah.
Come clean, Mike. Come clean.
Okay, so there are these people. They're called designers. They smell good, generally. They dress well. And they're really good at sweet talking corporate executives as every race, religion, creed, sexual orientation, age, country of origin, into doing things that are, I'm trying to find a nice way to say this, completely idiotic, but look pretty. That coupled with the second problem of every Madbot or customers listening, I of course don't mean you. Every enterprise I have ever met, ever, has this fallacy. I can only think of 2 companies that I know have legitimate security concerns that I've worked with, at least. I cannot think of a startup in the last almost 14 years that I've been doing this crap that didn't think that they were the NSA. They legitimately believe that someone wants to hack into their, 20-year-old Gen Zers want to hook up and have a good time app. They legitimately believe that. But, so they do these... I have implemented more of these horrible, completely breaks LastPass things than I care to mention. At the same time, they will have things like DigitalOcean accounts with passwords such as Robert1944.
That's very specific.
That is very specific.
So you might not be able to log in, but you can certainly get on DO and go into the terminal console for the database and dump the whole thing.
Huh.
And this is just how people operate. I mean,
yeah. This is my plea. Like, I don't think I'm going to solve world hunger. I'm not going to cure cancer.
You haven't been making much progress on that one.
No, I'm not giving up, but I'm thinking. But this, we can make a difference. We can make a difference. It starts with every listener out there. When you get to a website that doesn't let you paste in a password, you give them some feedback. It starts with every developer out there. When somebody gives you a design decision that says to have a modal login, you say, I will not. I refuse. It starts with all of us.
And then when you have no billings for that quarter, you write Linux Academy and ask them to send you some money. You cannot beat the designers.
We've called.
Hey man, this is the battle of our time, and it requires sacrifice. You can't make.
Yeah, you know what? I just want to say, they brought us iOS 7.
You got to crack a few eggs.
They're unbeatable. They're monsters. We're not starting a design show anytime soon, right? Okay.
No, not yet. Not now. No, we ought to talk about this thing that Canonical's doing that I don't think any other major Linux player is doing. Like, I look at what Red Hat has going on, and they don't seem to be making a huge play for IoT devices.
No, like Fedora's got some stuff, but not.
It's not like
in the Fedora way. They say it's off on its own.
It's not like a Red Hat
it's
corporate
not a big
deal.
corporate push.
But Canonical has announced that the latest version of Ubuntu Core for IoT will get 10 years of commercial support. At 260 megabytes, Ubuntu Core is one of the smallest IoT platforms out there. They did that essentially by stripping out a ton of components from the main Ubuntu OS and then figuring you could use snaps to replace some of that functionality. It also improves security by pulling a bunch of stuff out because you have a smaller attack surface. And when you consider the popularity of Ubuntu, Canonical has a pretty good pitch for their IoT platform here. It's got a wide range of applications, and Ubuntu Core enables a new class of app-centric things because you've got all of the snaps that are already, like things like Plex and FTP servers and mail servers that are snapped up that you can put on an IoT device. I think that's pretty compelling. You combine that with the smaller size, 260 megabytes, the fact that it's based off a 1804 LTS, and it gets 10 years of support.
Ooh, boy, howdy.
Now all of a sudden, you've got something pretty compelling to build off of here.
I mean, that seems like the major thing this guy has, right? Is that it's everything you already know. It's the same Ubuntu. I mean, a little bit changed, but if you're already using snaps, if you're already familiar with the Ubuntu base, it's the same platform. You don't have to start using Alpine or something even more exotic.
Well, it isn't kind of the same argument that has been really successful for Ubuntu, with that argument being one of the great things about Ubuntu is you can run it on your desktop and build on your desktop or on your laptop for the same environment you're deploying in the cloud.
Yeah, you match production right there.
Well,
same thing here. Yeah,
same thing with IoT devices. That seems pretty super valuable. And
I mean, I'll admit to I end up deploying Ubuntu all kinds of places for the same reason. It's just easy, and I know how to use it.
Now, I know in our off-air chats, Mike has looked a lot at IoT devices here and there over the years. For even on our on-air chats, we've talked about it a bit. Have you really looked a lot about the life cycle of the operating system of the devices that you end up shipping? Mike, is that something you factor in? Like, how long will it get security patches?
Kind of. I mean, so this Ubuntu Core thing is actually new to me, so this does look interesting. But yeah, it's generally any kind of LTS, and there are specialty versions of many Linux distros you can basically buy support plans for already. But if it's just something I'm kind of hacking on just to, try something out or prototype something, I hardly pay attention at all. But having said that, Ubuntu Core, put a gun to my head, greenfield project, I get to make all the decisions. This probably is the way I'd go because it's easy, something I know.
Yeah, and you get the 10 years of support, which I feel like the reason why I'm kind of excited about it is not because I'm like an IoT nut job or anything. It's just like if we're going to go down this path, for God's sakes, please figure out the software update.
Yeah, right. It'd be nice if they could just update things a little bit more, but clearly that's not happening. This is the best alternative. What
gets me so frustrated is this was a problem we foresaw when we started seeing all of these consumer grade routers. We all looked at that and went, well, we're not doing any kind of universal update.
No one's updating these.
This is a huge problem. What are we doing? That was a preview of what the IoT mess could be. And we have seen what that results in terms of botnets dominating these devices, taking over people's DNS, exploiting 0 days. These things are riddled with default passwords that are like the MAC address. Like the list goes on and on. That's routers. Like we need to take those lessons seriously and build IoT devices that reflect those lessons. And one of the core lessons is you need an update mechanism and channel to these devices to keep them secure because they are connected to people's networks. And that's one of the things Azure Sphere offers that I think is very compelling, a complete update lifecycle. Well, this is Canonical offering the same thing from the Linux side of camp, but it's a much more B2B kind of relationship because Canonical is a manageable size company. So if you're a reasonably small to large size company, you could work directly with Canonical. That's a huge benefit. That is,
right? Combine that with the fact that they've already, with their phone exploration, like they've already pushed their OS to all kinds of similar spaces.
Right. And you're likely already using it on the cloud. So it's just, I think it's a pretty clever play. And I think they don't get enough attention for it because IoT OSs are just one of those things that people don't talk a lot about.
It's hard too because with the long support cycle, like the last core release was ages ago. So this is the first time we've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I was distracted. I was watching my Ubuntu TV. What are we talking about?
I'm sorry. I got a call on my Ubuntu phone. I couldn't hear. All right. Well,
hang on. My Tizen is ringing. I'll be right back.
You got your bell rang this week on Twitter. I saw you start tweeting about this, so I knew you were percolating. And it starts with a simple tweet by Andrew Madsen. He writes, "It's weird how the iOS community has shifted so much from iOS development to Swift, quote unquote. 5 years on, and a huge part of what everyone's doing revolves around the language and not how to create great apps. Why is that?" And then after let's see, that was at that. I'm just doing a little time math here. February.
Analyzing.
So Mike percolates on it for around 12 to 16 hours, and he says, "You know what? Thinking more about this conversation." This is now our host, Michael Dominic. He says, "Thinking more about this conversation about how iOS dev and macOS dev scenes have changed online. It occurs to me that there is a platform where." Do you think I'm doing a good, Mike?
Oh yeah, keep it up.
Okay. It occurs to me there is a platform where the past ethos of just build cool things lives. And that's desktop Linux. You can see it in particular on Elementary OS.
Oh, man.
And I got to completely agree. I said I think it's a fair point. On the iOS side and the Mac side, things are driven by the trends of the mega corporation that drives it. Probably rightfully so. And right now that is Swift. So you see the culture of the community sort of align. There is a long stick to it sometimes with the Apple community, but you do eventually see them kind of fall in line with the Apple ethos.
Boy, this is interesting because it's the flip side. We talk a lot about the benefits of having that sort of corporate backing, right? But open source is often the scratch your own itch community.
Right. It's sort of like the last bastion of scratch your own itch. And I think that's pretty profound pondering you were doing there, Mr. Dominic.
Yeah, I mean, there is one other thing I would probably add. Longtime listeners, and probably not Wes, will know that I had Chris, how can we say this? A passionate reaction to the announcement of Swift?
An allergic, you might say?
Oh my.
I actually went back and re-listened to that episode kind of recently.
It's not a great look.
You can tell
I
I
have
was
to
like,
do that.
I was like panicked you were going to bail at any moment. It was
Yeah, like just throw a chair.
I had a little flashback moment when I listened to that.
So there is an alternate universe, theoretically. And I think this is other people, not me, saw Swift and realized what they could do was, because it was brand new, because Apple, as you guys are saying, does basically control the iOS ecosystem, and the iOS development ecosystem in particular, and to a lesser extent Mac. There was an opportunity. It was basically resetting the board, right? There would be some opportunity, and we see this. How many Swift podcasts exist now? How many Swift blogs, right?
Yeah.
Too many?
Position yours, right, to basically climb the ladder, so to speak, in the community. Position yourself as a Swift expert, I'm using sneer quotes here. There was a little resistant by some very few people who didn't want to switch. I think people just tried to seize that opportunity. And then the reality is Apple has been really aggressive at pushing Swift. So if you really love the Mac platform, if you love iOS, well, you're crazy not to embrace Swift. What's interesting is that something else happened at the same time, which is all the indies basically got killed. Even I believe somebody can fact check me, and apologies if I'm wrong, but I believe a couple months ago, even Panic Software, one of the biggest Apple ecosystem development companies and independent app makers, had layoffs, right? Black Pixel has had layoffs. In fact, they had to merge with somebody. All of these, if you were in the Apple community in the early to mid 2000s, the mid aughts, these were kind of the big guys that you looked up to. Not that they're gone, right? They're not like gone, but many of them have either refocused on consulting, writing enterprise apps for larger corporations, or, still have their products but don't make that much money on them, right? Have shrunk. The Omni Group rather has been pretty open in the last, I would say, 5 years about discussing some of the changes that have happened to the market. So take all those things together, right? Take the fact that there's definitely an opportunity for, look, when Swift came out, and I remember when the first Swift focused podcast came out, that mother jumped the charts like choose Linux. There's your plug. There's your plug, Jason. Why? Well, because one, Apple controls the iTunes charts, and two, it was an opportunity for an ambitious person to basically try to, jump up in the ranks. And also, all the indies are broke now. I know Linux hippies that this is going to feel weird for you. People used to sell their software for money. And there were these small companies that used to make a lot of money just selling Mac OS apps, and to a lesser extent iOS apps. And that is, I'm sure there are edge cases still, and obviously Panic and Omni still exist, but that is just not in general the case anymore.
Wow. See, that was always touted to me as one of the professional aspects. Sure, there might not be as much open source stuff, but if you've got the money and you have work to do, there are applications to do it.
Some of the big ones are still there. You know what?
Right.
But there's also in those applications, and I'm wondering if you see this as much on the Android side, Wes, there is a big, hard shift to subscriptions. Every kind of productivity app I've gotten on the iPad Pro that is a large productivity app mostly is being monetized by a monthly, not by an in-app. Not all of them, but I'd say 95%. And now, Hadia loves using the pencil on the iPad Pro to draw. Those are sign up for $9 a month to get
for the drawing app?
for new drawings and new colors and new tips and stuff like that. Everything is being monetized with a monthly subscription.
I guess we're just okay with it now, right? You might not actually be, but people seem to be paying it.
I feel like I understand why, because software development is an ongoing process of creating the software, maintaining the software, providing support, adding new features, even if you just keep up with the mobile platform pace of development, Android's true in this case too, perhaps not as rapid, but true, you have to just maintain at a certain point to stay in the Play Store, to stay in the App Store. And that takes time and money. Then you combine people emailing you for support, people that want new features.
I guess really the old model sort of assumed a certain amount of growth, right? The only way it was sustainable is that you had new customers.
That's it.
Well, and you could bump major versions and get another $100.
Right. You might, if you do that, you
People-
might have like a limited license, whatever.
Yeah. And like I touched on last week, not to beat this dead horse, but I think both Google and Apple are incentivized to have ongoing subscriptions. If they can turn all of these apps into little subscriptions, will they get a cut of that? So the owners of these stores are incentivized to encourage
Just
this
nice,
behavior,
predictable income for everyone.
which means keep prices low so that way we can get monthlies.
Yeah, but for that to make sense, and I think this is where some of the indies have ended up going. You need a lot of people buying your $5 a month or $20 a year or whatever it's going to be subscription. I mean, you need a lot of people.
I don't know. I mean, if you get 500 people that are all paying $5 a month, that might matter more than 1,000 people that download it for free, but only 100 of them. So, I mean, I don't know. Like you gotta look at it depends on what your sales might be. There's a lot of things there, but like for you look at Patreon, it's a similar system there. You can have a content creator that can make a few $1,000s a month on Patreon, but can then afford to distribute content to hundreds of thousands of people. So subscriptions do work in certain kinds of situations.
They can, but I think this is where sometimes talking to people who weren't like super Apple focused back in the day, it's not like Patreon, right? It's not like you're a one-man band writing an app and, let's take your $5 a month. That's $60 a year. 500 people, what is that, $30,000, if my math is correct? The indies that existed in the Mac ecosystem of course, there were one guys, right? There were one man, one woman shops. Of course, I'm not saying there weren't. But the ones that people tend to think about were small businesses that employed 5 to 10 people.
Yeah.
$30,000 for an app is a dev site, right? That's not even half of a dev salary, except for like super junior people.
Yeah, you're right. The subscriptions, it either has to be okay for that. Yeah, right. If you're talking about a company that's more than 10 people, yeah, it's got to be a pretty big scale.
Well, even 5, right? Let's just say you're 5 software developers. Then we're gonna make lots of assumptions, right? We're gonna say US or Europe. Why would you work for? It's just not enough money. But it used to be, right? Like, remember, OmniGraffle used to be a couple $100.
Yeah.
For one license, right? Same thing for all of Panic's stuff, and prices have gone down over the years. These were little companies making $250,000, $500,000 just doing their independent apps. And God's honest truth, other than some of the old ones who still stuck around, I cannot name. In fact, I would actually challenge you guys. Can you name a new app, and we'll just use the term loosely, any platform you care to mention, where they're just selling it to consumers or to small businesses, right? Any new company since, let's say, 2014 that has started or launched something.
Oh boy, you got
like
me
a
with
standalone product.
You got me with new company.
Yeah.
Right? That is not also a consultancy, right? Because I don't count. Because I'm
on the App Store, yes.
Yeah.
Like things like Drafts and IA Writer, but
okay. Yeah, I say okay.
But not on the desktop. Not on any of my desktops. No, there's been nothing.
No, yeah.
Wow.
I could name one.
What?
If they would just let ISH into the App Store, they'd be in great shape.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
That does make me ponder.
We should all make those businesses fail.
Still hate you, Richard. Still hate you.
He accomplished his mission, apparently.
So, can we talk about hardware for one more moment? One more time. I know.
I'm pretty depressed about the software, so
I know.
Let's try.
So,
hang on, let me spill this water.
I think we're in a really interesting time for hardware. So Mike's got these 2 System 76 rigs that come, out of the box running Linux, pretty nice, great options for developers. Plus, Dell's got their developer line.
Yeah.
Wes and I can attest the T480 runs Linux perfectly well.
Sure does.
Flawlessly, if you want to get a ThinkPad. And then today, there is a rumor out that there will be a 13-inch MacBook with 32 gigabytes of RAM.
32. Boy, that is, I mean, that's a number I had hoped for a long time.
I know we're not allowed to make predictions anymore, but I unlike Mike, I'm actually feeling pretty good about Apple's hardware prospects.
That's a big change. I mean, right, like a year ago, that was not the case.
I was, I think, the most vocal critic on this show about it, but I'm looking at where Intel's chips that are likely going to ship in 2019 are going to land, what might make it in the MacBooks, and I feel like since the iMac Pro was a pretty big hit, the Mac Mini seemed like a pretty solid release.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they're getting momentum. They're getting their heads around this again. Is what I suspect. Right as Mike is completely jumping ship. What are your thoughts on that? Just as we wrap up the hardware thing, because I'll tell you, I look at this and I think to myself, Mike, I could be in the market for a 13-inch MacBook Pro.
I thought no one needed more than 16 gigs of RAM. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'd use that to run a Linux VM.
Exactly. I heard something very, very different. So it's weird. I heard there was going to be a 16-inch one.
Oh yeah, no, it's both.
That is
it's
both.
rumor. Yeah,
Both
but who
things
cares
are-
about it? Nobody. Who's going to buy that? Nobody.
I mean, that is kind of a serious workstation, I guess.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But that sucker should go to 64 gigs. But 32 gigs in a 13-inch. I am all on the 13-inch laptop. I will never buy.
You can run all the Linux VMs you need.
I will never buy a larger laptop than 13 inches from now on. For the rest of my life, I don't
I
think
can
I'll
do 14, I think. But you're right with I mean, you travel enough, though. That's hard.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that could make sense. I mean, my biggest concern to get me to go back to a MacBook in any kind of serious capacity, I would need a keyboard that is not defeated by a grain of sand.
Yeah.
I know I'm half joking, but I've taken so many of them in for that.
That's fair. What's the early word on that Darter keyboard and trackpad?
It is okay. So spoiler alert, and I don't think Sub76 is going to like this comment. Don't buy the Galaga. The Darter is so much better in both. The keyboards, that's a taste thing, but the trackpad is so much more accurate. Not that the Galaga is bad, but the Galaga is your basic like Windowsy, non-Apple trackpad. The Darter is much closer. Now, they still aren't like MacBook trackpad, because apparently Apple is the only people who've learned the arcane magics required to make a good trackpad. But it's significantly better, and it's about as good as you would get on, say, an XPS.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. There's a lot going on. It's just a lot. I don't know what to make of any of it, Mr. West.
I know. It's nice that the T480 has been so solid because I don't have to think about it, at least for like a little bit.
Yeah, we've been getting tweets asking, people asking to listen to the show if we still recommend the T480. Gotten a couple, so figured we'd address it on the show. Yeah, it's something that I think I'd still recommend.
Yeah, it's no beauty, but it is pretty solid just as a workstation.
What do you think? I've been thinking I might recommend it high DPI.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what your workflow is and how much that matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think one advantage is if you don't go high DPI, it can be a pretty simple, like if you have like XFCE on here and you didn't want, just like you just used it for some appliance type situation, that would be a really good machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I think the MacBook might be a more effective machine for me just because I'm very unhappy with Linux Audio Stack right now. I am, as you know, I'm very unhappy. We don't need to go in on the show. But so I think for me, that might be the direction I go. We'll see where it goes. But I think it's going to be a strong year. And the overall trends probably won't change much, but I think they're going to have a strong year.
Well, if you're going Apple, before we cut out here, what about Mac Pro? Because isn't that the hotness if you're waiting on a Mac that... I know you travel a lot, so it's probably, but do you foresee a Mac Pro in studio?
No.
What would it take for that to happen?
I mean, I can't even think of that. They'd have to basically make a Thelio. That's what they'd have to do. Like if the Thelio was
that'd be nice.
Yeah, because I think that's great hardware. I just simply, I've had an ongoing relationship with Linux Audio Stack for a long time now, and we've just recently decided to see other people. We're happy, and we're still sharing custody of the studio, but we decided for both Linux Audio Stack and for myself, it's just better if we see other
Core Audio just does something for you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's not on Pulse. That's nothing. That's just between Core Audio and I. It's not nothing on Pulse. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week?
At Tumunuko on Twitter.
That's fair enough. I can't believe that's it, but that is the show somehow. It's nice being here with you guys.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if I'll be back next week, but I do like being here. We'd like to hear your feedback. We need to get more questions and feedback into the show. Our feedback section.
We do
has been
need some. Yeah, come on. Let us know.
I've been wondering what's going on because the downloads are still there. So people are still listening, but they're not writing in.
You, dear audience member, only you can change that.
We make dramatic changes to the show, and we hear just from a few people. It's very confusing. So let us know, because otherwise we're left here assuming probably the worst about you, really, if you think about it. Isn't that
Therefore, us.
It's human nature.
It is human.
So the only way you can fix it is by going to coder.show and then hit the contact link. See, there's a solution there for you.
Easy.
You can also subscribe to the show there, coder.show/subscribe, and you can grab links to all the things we talked about at coder.show/355. Mr. Payne, where can people find the excellently new revamped TechSnap program?
TechSnap.systems. Go there to find out why you should probably already be using QoS at home.
Yeah, and some cool tools in that episode as well. I'm at Chris LAS. The network is at Jupiter Signal. We do this show live on a Monday. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that. jblive.tv to watch that. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Coder Radio program, and we'll see you right back here next week.